Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to day one of Career Bootcamp 2026, where you will explore how to turn challenges into stepping stones for growth, both personally and professionally. Please note that this session will be offered in English and French simultaneously. To view the French session, please return to the Zoom lobby and join the French session. Afin de visionner la session en français, veuillez retourner au lobby et cliquer sur le lien pour la session français. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the land on which I am coming to you today is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Métis, and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I encourage all of you to acknowledge the land that you're on as well. Now, Career Bootcamp is the largest conference in the GC, and the only goal is to support you in your career journey. As we move through today's session, please share your questions by using the Q&A button in the language of your choice. You can vote for questions you like by clicking on the thumbs up button. And this is going to be extremely important because if we want to answer some of the more important questions that you agree with, this is how we're going to be able to do that. Sorry, if we could just go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so as with all the FYN sessions, this session will be recorded so you can go back to check out the recordings and the insights at a later date. In addition to the recordings on our YouTube channel, we are also offering another way to learn this year, a podcast series of the Career Bootcamp sessions. After CBC, the podcast will be made available on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We would also like to note that the PowerPoint presentations for each of these sessions is included on our wiki page so that you can feel free to follow along at your own rate and improve your own learning experience. All of the resources shared during this session will be added to our wiki page under resources. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a quick reminder, this session is going to include some discussion topics, vocabulary, and scenarios that some learners may find distressing, especially given the environment that is going on currently. At any point, please feel free to take a break as needed. And if you need support, please remember that EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, is available 24/7. And of course, additional resources can be found on our wiki page. Next slide, please. Okay, so my name is Marcus. I'm an epidemiologist here at the Public Health Agency of Canada. I've been working for just around 5 years, and I've moderated for CBC for the last number of years, actually. And today I will be your moderator. If we take a look at the learning objectives today, next slide, please. Here we go. Well, before we get into the learning objectives, first we're going to start out with a quick little poll. So feel free to answer it as soon as it pops up in front of your screen. The first question is going to be, what platforms have you used to look for jobs? Second one is, what type of staffing action got you hired to your current role? And the third one is, when will you be looking for your next role? So please fill out that poll over there. And as we're kind of getting those results here, I'll just read out the learning objectives for today's session. Today, we are going to be learning how to identify key platforms and tools for discovering job opportunities within the Government of Canada. We're going to understand the staffing processes and the terminology used across departments because, as we all know, there are a lot of terms and it can get really confusing. We're going to explore strategies for interdepartmental job transfers and mobility. And last but not least, talk about tips and tricks to enhance job search effectiveness within the federal public service. And now let's close out the poll and let's see what the results are here. I'm going to read it out as soon as I can see it. All right, here we go. Popped up on my other screen here. So a lot of people looking for jobs are actually looking on the GC Jobs website. About 82% of people answered that one, with the next one being LinkedIn only had 8%. So a very, very heavy skewing towards GC Jobs. What types of staffing actions got you hired on your current role? Looks like a lot of it was the advertised appointments at 37%, just followed by non-advertised appointments. And then the last but not least, when will you be looking for your next role? And 61% of you are already looking. So I think that this workshop is going to have a lot of really good information for all the people who are going to be looking towards their next role. And now to introduce the panelists for today. Next slide, please. Starting out, we've got Rena, who is a Senior Human Resources Advisor at the Public Service Commission of Canada within the Centre of Expertise for Outreach and Engagement. She provides strategic advice to facilitate outreach activities, to help the recruitment of candidates to the public service, and promote Government of Canada jobs. Next up, we have Allison, excuse me, who is an HR advisor within the Treasury Board Secretariat, specializing in learning design, career, and leadership development. As a former free agent, she has also gained extensive experience in finding her own opportunities and has experience across 5 different governmental departments. And last but not least, we have Aaron, who is a recruitment reader focused on the values of diversity and inclusion for talent recruitment. Previously, he has worked to promote recruitment within departments such as Public Services and Procurement Canada. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Aaron to start us out on our presentation. Thank you.
Hi there. Yes, thank you very much. So within the first slide here, we just want to touch on a little bit of the basics of GC hiring. So there's multiple ways to be hired within the public service. As we know, there's internal advertised, there's external advertised, there's non-advertised, there's multitude of ways, there's competitions. But mainly throughout every process that goes on through the Government of Canada, that the principles are there's fairness and transparency always within that hiring process. And where you are right now will help you determine which method to explore for your future career moves, whether you're indeterminate, whether you're determinate, whether you're looking at alternations, whether you're looking at assignments that may be coming to an end. There's multitude of methods, and being able to be here today, you'll be able to gain some information to figure out what's the next step and what's the next move that I need to do to be able to continue my employment. And then knowing this system inside and out will equip you to best market yourself for a new role and help understand your options.
Hi, everyone. So we're going to go through some definitions for external hiring. So the first one is advertised appointment. So when the appointment is made from a pool, it's consistent with the information on the original job advertisement. It can be considered as an advertised appointment. So that's to say the information that was in the original job advertisement, such as merit criteria, job location, hiring organization, matches the appointment. The next one is non-advertised appointment. So this is when there's no clear link between the job being staffed and the information in the original job advertisement. This is when the appointment is considered non-advertised. The next word you need to know is casual contract. So a casual contract is when a casual worker is a person appointed for a period not exceeding 90 working days in one calendar year in any department or agency. So casual employment is a temporary resourcing option. It's important to note that casual workers are not subject to the provisions of the Public Service Employment Act, and therefore if you're a casual, you are not considered an employee of the department or agency, and you are not considered an employee of the federal public service. So this means you wouldn't be able to apply on internal job postings. And then the next word we're going to go through is student contract. So students who are employed in the core public administration are hired under one of the approved student employment programs that we have. So these are the Federal Student Work Experience Program, the Post-Secondary Co-op or Internship Program, or the Research Affiliate Program. Students can only apply for internal appointment processes if they are specifically included in the area of selection. They are not eligible for internal appointment processes unless it is advertised and meets the conditions set by the regulations. And the final term on this slide that we're going to talk about is interchange. So Interchange Canada facilitates temporary work assignments of individuals in and out of the core public administration of the Government of Canada. So this is to transfer knowledge and expertise, meet organizational needs, contribute to the professional development of participants, and build an understanding and improve networks between the core public administration and other sectors. So an example of this is during the pandemic, I actually did work in interchange with the Red Cross. So as you can see, it's an agreement with an outside the government with another organization for a specific period of time. However, you do keep your substantive position is yours. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about mobility. So mobility is, this is information about how employees can be transferred to other positions within or between departments. So an appointment in the context of the Treasury Board for Government of Canada, it refers to the process of making a position available for a person to take on. So this process is governed by the Public Service Employment Act, which ensures that appointments are made based on merit and free from political influence. You should also get familiar with the word deployment. So a deployment is a transfer of a person from one position to another. It's not an appointment. It does not constitute a promotion. And a deployment may not change a person's period of employment from specified term to indeterminate. So what this means, if you're in a term position and you deploy, you have to deploy to another term position. You can't deploy from term to indeterminate. In the same respect, if you're an indeterminate, you can only deploy to another indeterminate position. The next term we should go through is secondments. So a secondment is a temporary lateral move of an employee to another department or agency in the core public administration and other organizations for which Treasury Board is the employer. So this resourcing mechanism allows employees to be seconded temporarily to a different position for a specified period at the same group and level or equivalent outside of their home organization, where there's no change in pay or terms and conditions of employment. Employees on secondments perform the functions or duties of the seconded position that already exists or take on a project while remaining an incumbent in their substantive position. An assignment, however, is a temporary lateral move of an employee within their department or agency. So this resourcing mechanism allows employees to be assigned temporarily to a different position or a project at the same group and level or equivalent within the same organization for a specific period when there is no change in pay or terms and conditions of employment. So employees on assignment perform the functions or duties of the assigned position or take on a special project while remaining in the incumbent of their substantive position. So we already talked about interchange agreements, and just to remind you, that facilitates temporary work assignments of individuals in or out of the public administration of the Government of Canada. And then we have micromissions, which we've been seeing quite a bit of lately. So micromissions are short-term voluntary positions, opportunities for members to showcase and develop their skills and to build networks by contributing to different projects while remaining in their work units and substantive positions. So micromissions are an informal way for members to gain experience and for managers to get support for projects that require specific knowledge or skills. They also help foster an agile workplace and workforce. An example of this is when I worked for FedStarter. You'll see the call out has come out and you'll probably see those emails. So I worked with FedStarter for 8 hours a week while doing my regular substantive job. So it's a way to gain experience, meet people, and network. I highly recommend it. So the last terms that we'll go through is various leave options. So there's a bunch of leave covered by collective agreements. So you should refer to your collective agreement to get the specifics of this. So those would be things like family-related responsibilities, court attendance, personnel selection, personal reasons, bereavement, volunteering, and such. There are other various leave options like educational leave, which you can look up on the canada.ca website. But leaves such as these are discretionary, which means it may be approved or denied by your manager. So these are the terms that you should be familiar with when looking for your new position. So that's it for me. Over to you, Allison.
Thanks, Reina. So let's talk about options. So your options will depend on the role that you occupy and what you're looking to do. So if you're an indeterminate employee, you would have increased flexibility for movement. I mean, depending on the situation, right now, there's not as much movement as there usually is. But even in this time of workforce adjustment, someone who's indeterminate and they've chosen to stay in government, there are options and there are systems of support. For term employees, there is also flexibility, but it's more tricky because you have to find every contract. And it also is, at this time, relatively limited, but I will say surprisingly, I have seen things work out. So we'll talk about it a little later, but this is why your network and who you know and the different channels that you're applying to are so important to diversify. And then for those who are trying to enter the government, you'll need a mechanism to get in. So one of the poll questions touched on that. So you'll need a selection process or a non-advertised staffing option. And again, there is some challenges right now with that. But all this to say is, it's really important for you to understand your specific situation. So your status, indeterminate, term, casual, student, and then any priority status due to workforce adjustment. So you wouldn't be in a situation where you don't know if you have priority status, as there is a lot of policies and communications in place for that. And then also it's important to know your group and level and comparable group and levels. So comparable group and levels, it's not just equivalent to pay, although this is a part of it, but it also has to do with the type of work and the responsibility of the classification. So for example, a PE2, someone in human resources, would be about considered equivalent with an AS4. And lastly, what you're seeking, you need to know what you're seeking and what it aligns to. And if it aligns to the opportunities that you're presented with and what you're expending your energy to find. So it's important to go with a goal in mind, ask your questions in the interview, and also see if it's a good fit for you. So we'll go to the next slide and go into a little more detail about knowing your options. So just alluding to the last point, spending time on processes that fit what you're looking for. So I like to suggest thinking about what function do you want to do and what impact do you want to have. Function being the skills you bring, past experience and expertise, the problems you want to solve, and impact being the changes you ideally want to bring. Impact on people, impact on systems, so the ripple effect of the work that you're doing. This reflection helps you set a really clear goal in mind. The other thing is to understand your rights if you've been notified of workforce adjustment. So you would have had a meeting, you would have gotten a letter, go to the sessions, especially the Public Service Commission sessions, talk to your HR advisor, know what you're entitled to, know your timelines. They're about the same, but really know your specific situation. And in terms of priority status, it applies to a few different situations. So like relocation of military spouse, but most commonly what you're going to hear about it is in the context of workforce adjustment. But that is also a very specific situation. You'd be in your opting period, you would have selected staying in the public service as a surplus, and then you would have to register as priority. So that's why I said it's really impossible not to know if you have that status. Also, it's good to understand what departments are hiring and what aren't. So GC Jobs has an archive function. You can see what the most recent postings were, and we saw 82% of you are looking on GC Jobs primarily. D&D is one that constantly comes up as a big hiring department right now, but I'd also encourage you to diversify. So LinkedIn was the next most popular with 8%. There's GC Exchange if you're already in the government, but also Facebook is another great avenue to connect with people, and it may surprise you the types of opportunities you may find. So I'll say personally that my most recent position that I found was through initially a Facebook connection on one of the GC Facebook sites. And then find the opportunity that fits what you need, and it may take time. This is a tough one. So it's unlikely you're going to be qualified for every single opportunity you come across. And it's very easy to waste time and energy chasing every possible lead that people may suggest to you, especially if you have been affected. As someone myself, I was workforce adjusted, my position was workforce adjusted in August, and I know the feeling of urgency and desperation. I need to find something. There's a lot of people counting on me, that sort of thing, but you have finite energy, and it's very exhausting to put in all this energy applying for every small lead and then not hearing back. So it's important to be thoughtful about the process, as challenging as that can be. I'm going to bring it back to Marcus. So Take it away, Marcus.
Thank you so much, Allison. So, excuse me. Yeah, a lot of really good information there. Obviously, defining a lot of terms and also just understanding some of the processes that are going on. And if I can ask all of my panelists to turn on their cameras as we're getting ready for our lovely Q&A session, this would be a good time as a reminder to please open up the Q&A. And if you have a question, please ask it in there. But if you do see a question that resonates to you as well, please thumbs it up. We're going to be sorting it based on the number of thumbs up to try and answer some of the more pressing questions, given the time frame, and a lot of people have a lot of questions currently. But just to start things off here, I'm going to ask, kind of going off of some of that, what you had just said, Allison, how has your network helped you find roles in the GC? And Allison, if you don't mind starting us out here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Marcus. So I always like staying connected with former colleagues and supervisors. Even in a time of uncertainty when they don't necessarily have the work for you, they can always provide advice as hiring managers in their own experience and references. References are so important to have good references who know your work well. And I like to keep in touch with like informational meetings, coffee chats. I know we've heard about that a lot. I think a lot of departments also have these coffee chat initiatives with senior executives, and these can also give you insight into decision makings and future priorities. And then anytime you have an opportunity to have an informational meeting, for example, with a past hiring manager or someone you just connected with at a networking event such as this one, you can ask them generally just to get useful information about the skills they see as anticipated future need for their type of work or other types of work in the department, priorities for their branch and division. Even if we always think like, oh, our network has to help us find a job. And yes, that's a big part. But in this time when there's limited flexibility and mobility, you can also get a lot of rich information that can help you be strategic about making your next move. You don't always have to act immediately. You can think about it, think about the information you have, and then act. So another thing that I would suggest is putting yourself out there and trying to have more of those informational meetings or coffee chats, either with a senior leader or a manager you had in the past, and maintain that connection because it's really easy to get siloed and think about your situation and how much you're worried or how much you're struggling. And just having those conversations with people can kind of open things up for you, put things in new perspectives, and then give you a little bit of reinvigoration into your search and into your work.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I think that the inspiration part is actually really important because then it gives you, especially when these processes can be so exhausting sometimes, it really just helps you stay motivated in the entire process. So thanks for your answer there. We're going to be now going to the Q&A questions that you guys have been submitting. And once again, please thumbs up the ones that you want to take a look at. I'm going to be starting out with the most thumbs up question at the moment, which is, I'm new to the GC and trying to figure out my next steps. Is there going to be room for growth given the current growth during a time of cutbacks? And I'm going to ask Rena to start us off for this question.
Thanks, Marcus. You have to think of it as, yeah, this is a rough patch. This is a rough period. There's no question. It's very stressful. But you have to also think the government is the largest employer in Canada. There will never not be a government. There will always be positions. So my best advice to you would be to make your work speak for itself. Your work, your ethic, who you are as a person, that all counts. So as long as people see how you work, how you interact with others, do your stellar work and you network and you meet people, I wouldn't be too worried. It speaks for itself, right? Like the government will never not be there. So there is that feeling, that impending doom that everyone's feeling. Like we get that, but there'll always be jobs. And you think, there's so many people that will retire. There's so many people who will take early voluntary departures and those kinds of things. There's always going to be a cyclical nature of government. So it's tough right now, but that's why we can't panic. we have to really be realistic. And, it might take a little longer than you expect to get to the next level, but it's important to keep an open mind and not to be very down about things. You really have to keep an open mind and, do your research and homework. And as Allison said, network to death, network everything, meet people. And that's how you're going to get through it and find that next opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Rena. Aaron, do you have any input on this question about having room to grow during a time of these cutbacks?
I think so because as much as the stuff that's going on there right now, there still will be new projects. There will still be new plans or initiatives from cross government wide that will be coming out in the near future. And so within those different projects, there may be different positions that are needed within those. So there still may be a smaller area of growth, but there still might be some growth within some departments. And you'll be able to see that with the GC jobs postings with your networks there, maintaining those as long as you're staying up to date and staying connected within your area and other opportunities that are coming up, you will be able to see some opportunities. And a few of those might be right up your alley, might be great fits. And you should go and apply for those and you should be able to reach those if you are interested in them.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, especially given the current environment going on, kind of not being too focused in the now of all of the doom and gloom and everything, and trying to keep that positive outlook, especially exactly as our panelists have said, different projects are going to be coming along. And so as a result of that, there's different opportunities. Allison, did you have something to add?
I do. I also think you can reframe growth in terms of like mental and emotional resilience, working on your flexibility and adaptability, managing like high pressure files. So, I mean, maybe you're not moving a position, but there is a lot of like character-based development that I think is being forced upon us to learn in this time. And there's always micro learning opportunities, like the Canada School of Public Service. They're really good about micro learning, and even if you're not part of the government, like LinkedIn Learning, the Microsoft, they have these free opportunities. So you can also develop, for example, we're big on AI now, using it in a responsible and thoughtful way. There are ways to find your own opportunities for learning and growth, even if it's not your day-to-day desk job. And that's, I think, where I've got some of my best learning and helped me find my next jobs is when I sort of put myself out there in a more creative way. And I know it takes a little more energy to be like that. You have to open yourself up a little bit. You have to put in a little energy. But if you have that, I'd recommend it. And also, like cross-departmental or interdepartmental groups, working groups. That's a way to meet people in different departments or within your department. That's a little bit of a stretch opportunity right there. And maybe it's side of the desk, but you can also network and then learn a little more.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, all three panelists, for your input on that question.
Marcus,
Moving-
may I
moving-
just add one thing?
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry.
What's to discuss?
Just a tip for people who want to know where they might go if they want to go somewheres. Watch the news and subscribe to the Prime Minister's newsletter and all those things. And those will give you hints to where the jobs are going to be, where those big projects Aaron mentioned are. So anything in the security field is going to be huge. D&D right now is definitely hiring across the board, CBSA. So you can see that these types of departments are getting funding all the time. So just a hint, I mean, it may not be in your stream, but have a look on GC Jobs, look at these departments, see what they're hiring. Housing, for instance, housing and infrastructure. So Canada Mortgage and Housing Agency is hiring, Canadian Forces Housing Agency is hiring. So it's not all cutbacks everywhere, but the focus will be on certain aspects of the government. So just a tip for people to want to look elsewhere.
Thank you, Rena. Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. When the all of the WFA was happening at the Public Health Agency of Canada, I know D&D actually reached out to quite a number of people who were affected in order to try and recruit them over there. So kind of keeping your brain open to other departments as well might help you find different opportunities with things going on. But okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to our next question here, which is for some job postings that include a specific location, for example, the NCR, the Gatineau region? Should I try to apply even if I am outside that area, or will my application be rejected immediately? This time around, let's have Aaron start us off.
So my advice there is again is that if it's outside of the area of selection, first off, when it comes to the time of the assessment, they may go through initially right away and look if through locations there, and if we're outside of it, then we wouldn't necessarily meet that criteria. So it might not be moved forward into the next stage of the process there. So I would look again as of right now, because of everything that's going on, is to really focus on the areas that you are able to meet those areas. So if you're in those locations, if they're hiring for a specific area there, and if we aren't meeting it, we might want to focus our energy on a different area to be able to make sure that we are moving forward into the next stages of the process.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, it's super important to make sure that you're meeting the checklist items before you kind of advance through that application. So, great answer there. The next question, we've kind of touched on some of these things already, but always good to kind of get back into it. With workforce adjustment happening, how safe is it to change departments for a promotion? Rena, would you like to start us off here?
Yeah, so I've had many, many, many jobs. Many jobs. I've moved laterally, I've moved for promotions. It really depends on your skill set. Is it in your field of work? Is it what you want? If someone is willing to hire you and promote you at this period in time, I would say, 9 times out of 10, that's probably a good sign. But more importantly, is this going to make you happy? Is this a promotion that is going to fulfill you? And, is it something you feel like you can do? I've taken many lateral moves that have been opened many doors, and I found those to be almost more valuable than some of the promotions I've taken. So in this context, though, if someone is offering you a promotion, ask the questions as well. Ask, is there room to grow after this promotion? How long, how many people are in the team? Just kind of get a feel of the department for yourself and get a read on it. Promotions are great, but they're not everything, right?
Thank you, Rena. Any other panelists want to comment on this at all? I know this could be an interesting topic for people. Allison?
I see. Okay, yeah, for sure. Just I wanted to add that, especially in this day and age, if someone is able to hire someone via promotion, given the restrictions, given like the austerity measures, it's likely that is like in terms of safety, it's likely that position is pretty safe. Like in terms of getting workforce adjusted again, usually people are even more cautious. So in terms of hiring managers, they're going to err on the side of not hiring versus hiring. So if your concern is fully just safety, you like the position, like Rena said, it's something that you have a passion for. In terms of safety, it should be relatively a stable position.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Anything to add, Aaron, or would we like to move on here?
No, I think they're all covered. It's great. I said if you're getting one, great, fantastic, take it.
Okay, perfect. We always love a good promotion, especially when it gets offered. Okay, so this next question, is there a resource besides word of mouth / networking for seeing where best your interests, passions, skills might align within the very vast public service? And Allison, why don't you kick us off for this question first?
Okay, I really liked Rena's point about watching the news and looking at what's happening in Parliament. We had the budget a couple months ago and looking at trends. So using that critical lens in terms of anticipating what you think government priorities are. So that's one piece. And then the other piece is a reflection piece of what the impact you want to have, your skills, your desires, and seeing if they can all kind of intersect into one type of area. So yeah, keep informed of the news. This is also a good place in addition to having those conversations with people who are in the know when possible. And then the other half of it is doing that reflection. So like a skills inventory and thinking of your most transferable skills. So maybe we have niche skills and that's good consideration, but also think of your higher level transferable skills like like data transformation, so data visualization, representation, your familiarity with writing, clear like briefing notes, verbal communication, facilitation, these kind of things. So get a good sense and take stock of where you are and what your strengths are, and then also consider what you like and what you're interested in, and then from there you'll see gaps of areas maybe that you need to develop, or maybe areas that aren't in your wheelhouse, and you're okay with that, and you're okay with putting your energy elsewhere. So there's a certain amount of looking externally at trends in the news, but then also the other half is you probably may have a little bit of extra time now, depending on your situation, to do that reflective piece.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Aaron, do you have anything else to add on that question at all?
Yeah, for me, my advice is to look at really what's going to make us excited about coming into work each and every day, for figure out what we wanted to do. So that may involve a little bit of introspection of saying, am I a type A person? Do I like working with spreadsheets? Do I like working with data analysis every day? If I don't like it, then maybe I won't necessarily go into those areas. Am I more of an extrovert, a people person? Do I like interacting with people each and every day? So maybe that might be more of a project manager, being in HR on the recruiting side of things. So it's figuring out what makes us tick and kind of what makes us feel our best each and every day we come to the office. And once we're able to really know that, is then we can really find opportunities that really suit ourselves. And that's kind of stuff that I did early on, was to figure out what kind of track I wanted to go down, was what's going to make me feel fulfilled, what's going to make me leave the office happy each and every day. So that's kind of what I did.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I actually think that's such an important point because, as much as people are kind of talking about like go as wide as possible, try and find as many opportunities as possible. At the same time, it's really important to find something that supports your overall well-being and growth. Especially given that you want to be able to grow in your own professional life. It's really important to find positions that are going to align with that. And that's not an easy conversation to have with yourself sometimes, especially given the current situation. But I think that that is still such an important consideration. So thank you for that input there. Moving on to our next question. Is there an equivalency chart for the classifications available? And Rena, why don't you answer this one?
I've been asked this question so many times. There is no tool that I know of that is current where you can find an equivalency. It is a complicated type of calculation. You can kind of get some hints on GC jobs. For example, if you see a position is advertised as CR5/AS1, you know that that's an equivalent position. For those ones, those are easy, but there's like if there's a salary and 4%, and it has to be within that range. So my suggestion is if you are looking for an equivalency chart, you really should be contacting someone in your HR to see if they can, break that down for you. I've seen some tools online. They're complicated spreadsheets. Honestly, I wouldn't go by a tool that someone made unless you know for sure that they're accredited and it's legit a government tool. But I would definitely contact someone in your HR to make sure that it is, the right tool, the right information that you're getting.
Can I add something?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with Irina. You really have to go the legitimate route. But I did learn about D&D has created a phone application. I think it's called HR Go. I don't know if I know the name correctly, but Aaron's nodding, so I must have got it correct. And it can give you, they have something called a promotion calculator. So it can give you an approximate idea based on the amount. So that 4% that Rena was talking about. But like disclaimer, you have to go through the proper channels as well. But if you wanted to get an idea.
Thank you. And Allison, could you say the name of that application one more time? Because I think that's going to be an important one for people.
Okay, HR Go.
Yes. So feel free to look that up and hopefully that helps some people out there. Okay, our next question is going to be, where can we learn about micro mission opportunities? I've never seen one on GC Jobs or LinkedIn. And Rena, I hate to pick on you, but this slide was yours. If you could also start out by defining what a micromission is, once again, just so we know what we're all talking about.
Yeah, sure. So a micromission is a temporary volunteer period of time where you're still in your substantive position, but you're doing the duties of a project. So the example is I did a micromission with FedStarter. I think this year's FedStarter 11. So there is a call out right now for projects. So FedStarter looks for ideas, sort of like Dragon's Den. And you can network and you can either work with the FedStarter team, or if you have an idea for like their Dragon's Den type day, then you could submit an idea and it can be implemented. So micromissions come out every now and then. I did see one a couple of weeks ago for the Public Service Pride Network. So they were looking for micromissions, and I think those were a little bit longer period in time. But this is why you need to network and connect with different groups outside of your regular day-to-day. So join those networks, Public Service Pride. You could join other networks like, what else was there? Like the FedStarter ones. But I did have a link to a micromission, but it's from a GC Wiki page. I'll post that in the chat. Again, it's about a specific micromission job, and there's not much on it. You really have to do some research, look online. There's all the GC Facebook groups. Sometimes they talk about them there. But GC Wiki, GC Collab, GC Exchange, all those things. You can join groups. For example, I joined the HR community groups. I joined public service groups for Asian and federal employees, those type of things. So it's that kind of word of mouth that gets those opportunities out there. So I'll just post that in the chat in a second. But sorry, there's no real formal page for micromissions per se.
And actually, just to kind of follow up on this as well, Rena, do you have any advice for people who want to contact their HR but don't even know where to get started? Because a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today is like, go to HR. And even truthfully for myself, I wouldn't know how to contact HR.
Right. So several things you could do. Talk to your supervisor, talk to your manager. I guarantee you they know how to get hold of somebody in HR. There might be a generic inbox. Look at your homepage for your intranet that you have. There should be resources there. Talk to your colleagues. I know sometimes we're in a virtual setting and we don't actually talk to people directly, but I mean, send them a message. Hey, I have an issue with pay. Who do I talk to? Chances are someone will know your supervisor, your chain of command going up. Someone will have that information. But even, like I said, your internet, your homepage for your government department should have something on there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Rena. And yeah, that link will be shared in the chat so everyone can go and take a look at that. Next up, we're going to be talking about, can you advise on how best to apply for jobs as a person with disabilities and medical DTA for full-time work from home when job postings specify return to office 3 days a week? Allison, if you would like to try and take a stab at this.
Sure. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, that someone is applying for a job, so they don't have a current position, and I guess I have questions, but if you're already in the government as a federal employee and you're just looking for like a deployment or something like that, you would kind of tap into the DTA accommodations that you already have. I don't know how a successful GC Passport is for people, but this is a tool that allows people to carry their accommodations, so to speak, across departments in a way that allows them to not have to go through all the paperwork and the processes over and over again. And if there's something around that, there is support for that. There is like dedicated teams that advise on when you're having issues specifically with transporting things across. For example, though, if you're new and you're starting off, the disclosure of your needs or the requirement of accommodations you can ask for those right in the interview process, and that should be provided to you. This question has like a lot of points to it because we're talking about, first of all, the return to office mandate, the policies around duty to accommodate, and depending on the kind of support that you have, I think we could go into more detail, but duty to accommodate and return to office, they often conflict, right? Because depending on the decisions made by management, you're having to it's almost like prove yourself, and that is not a great feeling. So I would suggest to this person, because I'm not talking to them specifically, but to go to the passport team or the duty to accommodate dedicated office in their department or any sort like that area, and start with the advice there. And I mean, there's always like the union option, but I think you should try to start first with the resources specifically in your department. And I know, like Aaron, this is something Aaron is nodding about, and I think he's very passionate about like accessible and inclusive hiring. So I wonder if Aaron also has stuff that he would like to add on this topic.
Yeah, thank you. This is an area that I work with in a lot of our departments here. So whenever comes to recruitment process, there's the duty to accommodate, and that whenever as HR practitioners, we work with hiring managers quite often because they have questions as well too. So there's always a general process for them, and there's tools for managers that provide focus for assessing and responding to accommodation requests. It's not always legal advice, but accommodation is determined on a case-by-case basis, and managers throughout the process play an important role in fostering the inclusive workplace. So they need to show exemplary leadership to create respectful and diverse and barrier-free working environments. So through all these areas here, there's a ton of communication that goes on as once there is that request for accommodation, is that process is essentially started with the appropriate teams and the manager for that process. And there's a lot of communication. So they'll work with them to figure out how we can best to accommodate. And they'll always give a bunch of different steps. So they'll gather relevant information, assess needs, they'll make an informed decision, they'll implement a decision, and then they'll also keep records and following up throughout the hiring process. So there is I would say a lot of information. So you could spend close to about an hour and a half just on that process alone. But throughout everything, it's just always that if there is that need for accommodation, is to please make sure that is known, because there is a process in place that you are able to help throughout it. So please utilize that. Please make sure that managers are aware of that, so they can be able to conduct the hiring process in the way that is able to meet your needs as well.
Okay, thank you both for answering that question, especially too, it's really important to continue to make sure that those things are known. Otherwise, you might just be walking into a situation, and even the hiring managers as well, like Aaron said, it's their duty to make sure that they are accommodating you. And so that's a very important thing to flag for people. Next question we have is, most of the openings I see are at level. In that case, how does one try to progress from their current substantive level? And yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
That's a good question, because I kind of felt like that for a few years as well too. But the biggest thing that I've was always told as the advice of, even when I would attend these, because I was asking the same questions, was a lot of the times is we do have a ton of support throughout the government of Canada throughout finding our next opportunity, but we have to take our career in our hands. So we have to do a lot of networking, we have to do a lot of communicating, and we have to sometimes find the next opportunity for us. And so the greatest advice that I had was, because I'm in the HR world, was just start talking to people, figure out where there's openings, figure out where there's opportunities, join the Facebook groups, because every single promotion or next opportunity that I have found has been through a Facebook group. And we have an HR one where you would, for example, post in there and say, oh, my name is this is my level, this is my my language levels here, this is my substantive here, I'm looking for my next opportunity. You may get individuals replying back to other hiring managers that say, oh, we have an opportunity, or what's your email, or can you send me your resume, we may have a fit there. And sometimes it may not. And it's just sometimes the nature of the highs and flows. But if we're able to really take that career in our control and look at what our skill sets are, how can we network them, how can we showcase and kind of promote ourselves as well too, I think that that'll go a long way to help find that next level, find that next opportunity. And also as well too is the micro missions, the different assignments is don't feel afraid to say no. Don't feel afraid to say, oh, I might not be an expert of this, but if you go into with a learning mindset, you might be able to learn a lot and gain a whole new skill sets that you can then use to further market yourself in the future, which I've done plenty of micro missions. I've done plenty of assignments to just kind of help build my toolbox. So then when that time is ready, that I do need to make a change or I do need to look for my next opportunity, I am ready for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Aaron. And just to kind of build off of that as well, I know sometimes it can be daunting to post in some of those Facebook groups just because like, you're advertising yourself, you're kind of putting yourself out there, but that is part of the growth as well. And knowing that all the people who are also posting in there, like everyone's kind of going through the exact same thing and everyone kind of understands that and is accepting of it. So don't be afraid to kind of utilize some of these resources and communities that exist for you to do so. Okay, we're going to do a bit of a tougher question now. This one is, I've been notified that my position is affected, sorry. What should I do? And I'm going to start off with Rena on this one because she talked a little bit about it during her slides, and then other panelists feel free to jump in.
Okay, the first thing you need to do is not panic. For one, don't panic. It's a letter, it's an effective letter. Read it carefully. There's an information, there's process, and you need to be very aware of the steps in the process. So I'm going to be very candid. Don't go down a rabbit hole in Reddit and look at all the nasty comments and people are saying about being affected, be objective, read it. I mean, it's okay to be upset about it. Totally okay. In fact, give yourself a couple days to be upset about it. That is fair. I was affected back in the day in 2013, and it was devastating to me. But I mean, all you can do is advocate for yourself. Learn the steps, know what's your rights, know what's coming up next. Don't just listen to, in this day and age, like back then, we didn't have a whole lot of social media like we do today. I would kind of try to filter out that noise and take advantage of the supports that are being offered to you. Talk to people who have been workforce adjusted, probably more recently than me, I guess. Talk to your manager, talk to your supervisor, and communicate, what it is you want to do. Get all the information. Like the best thing you can do is get all the information that you can get and make an informed decision for yourself, for your situation. And it's important to keep in mind that everybody's situation is not the same. What works for one person is not going to work for everybody. So try not to feel that pressure to, oh, well, this person says I need to go here. I need to go to this department. I need to get out right away. I need to, take voluntary departure. I'm going to go to the private sector. Take a breath, take a beat, read everything you can, and make sure that what you're going to do is going to be best for you, your family, and what you want to do in life. But first and foremost, don't panic. I can't stress that enough. You got a letter, okay, take your steps and follow it through to the next. And once you get to the next step, take your steps and, read it out, get your details, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Can I
Go
add?
ahead, Allison. Yep.
So I was actually my position was affected last August, and I have actually, in a kind of a nice way, found a position at the end of December. So I agree with everything Rena said. It's very easy to feel like devastated. And I know it's so cliched to say, but I guess I have to say at one time in this session that it's not a reflection of your work. So you still have a lot of merit and value, and you can, once you read the letter and you know your options, because so I want to go back just a second. Your position can only be workforce adjusted if you're indeterminate. So this would only apply to indeterminate employees. So if you're a term employee, it would just be maybe your term is ending a little earlier or something like that. So read it, learn your options, and also you should have been assigned an HR advisor to help with this transition. And I would recommend once you kind of get a sense of what's happening, you start to have a conversation with them. So it's not the only option to stay in the public service. That's one of the options. There's also like voluntary retirement or voluntary leaving. You can also go on educational retraining. So there are options for you. And if there's something that you're kind of leaning towards, that's a good time to have a discussion. It's a good time. It's also good to talk to other people. But just in my experience, it's so easy to just everyone get really upset, and then you leave the conversation feeling more disempowered than empowered. So have those conversations kind of sparingly and really pick the people you talk to. And then it comes back to reflecting on your goals. And this can be thinking of your priorities. And your priorities, I don't mean professionally. Well, they can be professional, but you can also think of your priorities being your family. So moving may not be an option for you, and that's fine. One thing I will say is if you decide to stay in the federal public service and you decide to opt surplus status and go on the priority list, you can apply to positions outside of your area. So if you're not an NCR, you can apply to them, but you have to potentially move, like if you get that position. So if family is a priority, keeping them stable, then that's a priority, and that's that's something that's important to you, and you redirect your search that way. And also know the resources that you have. So there's the PSC, the Public Service Commission. They have information sessions. There's a lot in them, but it talks about from the start of your letter, learning your timelines, learning your details, and all the nuances that go with it. And there's also coaching. I'm not sure if this is the same across all departments, but my position is at Treasury Board Secretariat, and we actually received funds for professional coaching, career coaching, financial coaching to see, for example, if like voluntary leave is doable with your financial situation. And you can also start to upskill as well. So after you've taken the time to reflect, kind of integrate what's happened to you, and you're ready to open up and start making a plan, those are the next steps. But I think what Rena's point is you don't have to rush that because it's over a year. If you decide you want to stay in the public service and go on the priorities, you have over a year to find that position from the end of your opting period. There'll be a session on this. I know I'm using a lot of terms. So you don't have to rush that piece. And there's a lot of moving parts as well with like the early retirement incentive that's still in Parliament, and a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. So it's not like you have to find it next month. And I think I said this in my slides. I know there's a feeling of urgency because I felt it a lot. And I spent a lot of energy kind of chasing the leads that people had suggested me to. And I ended up feeling really tired, and they weren't fruitful. So that's another thing that I would say about being strategic and taking your time. So those are some things that I experienced.
Okay, thank you, Allison. And Erin, did you have anything you would like to add just quickly? We're really close to time here, but if you had anything you'd like to say?
No, they covered it all. It was great.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, then unfortunately, we are at time for this seminar. There's going to be one final polling question that kind of comes up here, which is, was the session a good use of your time? Pretty simple question. I'm hoping that the answer is going to be yes. I want to say a huge thank you to Allison, Rena, and Erin. So much really important information being shared in this session. And of course, talking about WFA, all of the things going on here, and analyzing your options, because this is an incredibly uncertain period of time. So we really appreciate all of the information that you shared with us today. Just a reminder that there is a 2:30 Eastern Standard Time workshop that is up next, which is for Career Mobility Decoded. There's also an opportunity to drop into the kiosks and speak with members of GC communities immediately following this session. Well, if you're wondering how to navigate those booths, go to the Expo tab in the lobby menu. Then you're going to be entering into the virtual expo floor. And then from there, you're going to move your little avatar into one of these booths. And inside of the booths, you're going to see the GC community and a logo. You will also move into a meeting space that is a Zoom meeting space with a representative from a GC community that is currently hosting it. You can enter that meeting to ask the representative questions, and just make sure to hit that blue join button to enter into the Zoom meeting. Once again, the link to all the sessions as well as the networking event can be found on the Zoom events main page. So go take a look there. And of course, resources will be available on the wiki page, and the recording of this event will be available on our YouTube channel and Spotify and Apple Podcasts when that is made available. Thank you so much for attending, everybody. Once again, a lot of really good information, and hope to see you in the next panel and workshop. Thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon.